What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Optimize You, the podcast where we help you transform your health, fitness, nutrition, mindset, identity, and create that lasting change in your life that everybody's after. And we got another awesome one for you today. Me and Matt are going to be talking all about motivation versus discipline and really just like being able to achieve your goals and your dreams when you aren't motivated. Because let's be real, you're not going to be motivated most of the time. Right. And what's going on, Matt? How you doing today, brother?
What's up, brother? Pumped to be back again. Another week, another fresh start, another awesome topic. One that I often get asked quite a bit from either leads, potential clients, from a lot of people just on social media. So I'm excited to dive into this one, man. And I know you are too.
Oh yeah, man. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about because, like you said, everybody complains about this. Like this is probably the biggest reason why people don't start is because they're not motivated. And really, like that is the worst reason not to start. Because we were just talking about this before that I'm barely ever motivated to do any of the shit that I do on a regular basis. Like it comes down to that discipline, right? Like just like developing that muscle and just, I think the biggest thing, just getting right into it. Let's get right into it today. The biggest thing is developing routines, right? Like just like having those routines that you can stick to and having a way that you remind yourself about these things that you know you need to do to get to your goals. Because I think that most people know what they need to do at like some level, right? Like I think there's certain things that like with metabolism, with reverse dieting and things like that, that maybe people don't really understand or are not like comfortable committing to without the help of a coach or a nutritionist or somebody else in that for that matter. But with most things we know, right, we got to drink more water. We got to focus on sleep. We got to focus on more movement, exercise, eating quality foods most of the time. Most people know that that's the formula to get to them where they want to be. But yet they still struggle on a daily basis to do the things they need to do.
Yeah. I mean, you hit it on the head. It does come down to routine, right? I think a lot of people it's not a lack of information. People know exactly for the most part what they can do. If I place two different plates in front of somebody and one is a little bit more healthier option, one is a bunch of processed, high sugar, high carbohydrate, high fat, I think people can differentiate at least 9 times out of 10 which one's the better option. So people know what to do. They may not necessarily know the intricate details like you're talking about, which of course where a coach can come in and help guide them along the path, specific roadmap to them to help cut a lot of the guesswork out and cut their time duration down in terms of them getting to where they want to go. But as far as developing that routine, developing that consistency that we talk about, that's what's most important. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And that's literally the backbone that you're going to have to rely on if your goal and ambition is to get to or become a better version of yourself or to achieve XYZ. It really doesn't matter what it is, but obviously on our podcast, we're talking about health and fitness. And so we hear it oftentimes a lot. And one of the things that I hear a lot, we were talking about before we hopped on, is as people enter into my group, one of the questions is, what is the biggest thing that you struggle with? What is the thing that you struggle with the most? What's your bottleneck? What's the thing that's holding you back? 9 times out of 10, people are either putting one of two things. They either put consistency or they put motivation on there. So we get this quite often. It's a topic that Alex and I are extremely well versed in because we see it so much. And so we know how to deal with it. We've dealt with it for a very long time, not just with ourselves. Of course, we have our own struggles too, but more so clients and people who are trying to get to a particular place. So I'm excited to dive into some ideas here, man. So the first thing that pops off the top of my head for me to ask you is, if somebody says that first thing and they're like, the thing I know I need to do XYZ, it's not a matter of, the information, or I don't feel like I need to know a ton of more. I just can't get myself to do it because I'm not motivated. What's your response to somebody that says that?
Yeah, I think step one, and this is something I've been talking a lot about lately because I've realized just how important it is in really anything you're going after in life, is you need to get clarity, right? You're going to probably hear me talk about this over and over and over again, because I think that most people that I've seen, okay, I'm not motivated, but I'm going to go right into fat loss, right? Like without even really figuring out exactly what they truly want. And I think that clarity around your dream outcome, what you actually want, why you actually want it, what's really important to you in life, your belief systems, your false beliefs that may hold you back. Like we need to get down to that nitty gritty. And I think the most important though is like, what do you really want? Because if you're struggling with motivation, there's a potential thing going on and this may not be the case, but I find that this is the case with a lot of people, is that you're chasing goals that aren't important to you, right? You're chasing things that maybe Susie over here is doing that you really don't even vibe with, or you don't have any sort of reason for going for, right? And then you see the people who are like, I want to get down to 140 pounds. And the 140 pounds means nothing. It's arbitrary, right? Like, but really you start to get clear on what you really want, and you figure out, okay, actually what that 140 pounds means to me is that I have more energy. I feel amazing about myself. You know what? I loved the way I looked last time I was 140 pounds, and, you know, I was just in an amazing mood, right? And so like from there, we can start to get down to that whole deal of that. Okay, so the weight doesn't really matter to you. Feeling better, feeling more energized, liking the way you look, liking yourself is what really matters. We can start to put together a plan and a way to track those metrics that are actually going to help you get there, right? So it's like now we have a goal that's more important to you. And guess what? When you have goals that are more important to you and you things that you actually truly desire, it's a lot easier to find motivation and to even on a different level to do the things you know you have to do, even when you're not motivated.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Like that's such a great idea to establish first and foremost. I think most people skip that part or they don't have that clarity piece. And when we're talking about, okay, we'll give you the steps to do A first, then B, then C, like we'll give you the tangible steps. But if we don't know where it is that we're going, of course, you're sitting there waiting for motivation or somebody to kick you in the ass to be like, okay, now it's time to go. I call that white knuckling through things, right? I call that grit and grind. And like, it's like somebody's paddling upstream and you might only have a single paddle and you're going against the current right now. It's like, okay, let's flip your boat around. Let's give you a motor instead of some paddles. Let's make sure we're going with the current. And once you figure that out, and that's exactly what Alex is talking about, is the clarity. And once you have that clarity, you will now be going with the current. You won't be swimming or paddling upstream. You'll have a motor behind you with some horsepower, and then things get really fun. And you talk about motivation, and everybody knows what that feeling is. And that's why people say it, is because once you feel it, the process becomes so much easier. To do the thing, it becomes so much easier. I think the big issue is people think that it's supposed to feel like that every single day. Like we want to take advantage of when it strikes, because it will strike. And we all know what that feeling is, whether it was in our health and fitness journey or not. We've all been motivated to do something and we know what that feeling it is. It's almost like it just feels smooth. It feels effortless. It feels fluid. And we want that. Of course, everybody wants that feeling in our new process or the new journey that we're embarking on. But the reality is it's not going to be there every single day. And so just accepting that and understanding that. And first and foremost, too, understanding to feel the feelings that you're feeling aside from motivation. Maybe it's discouragement. Maybe it's frustration. Maybe you're upset in your process. Whatever those feelings are that may be more in like the negative column, first and foremost, acknowledge that that's 100% okay. It's okay to feel those things. It's human. It's showing that you're human. I think people just see somebody up on a pedestal, or to your point, a friend that has reached some extraordinary goal and they're inspired by that. That person wasn't necessarily motivated every single step of the way to be able to achieve it. They went through the same feelings and they are currently experiencing the same feelings and similar feelings as you are. They just understand how to manipulate and maneuver and guide around it by first and foremost establishing that clarity, but then also having a crystal clear day-to-day routine and process that helps them get there.
Yeah, I love it, dude. And I kind of want to go in two directions with this. So I think like one direction I want to go in is, obviously we have motivation and discipline, right? And I think we both agree that like discipline is what's truly going to get you to your goals. If you're relying on motivation and you're letting action ride that wave of motivation, which was my life for a long period of time. I talk about it, whereas like when motivation was up here, I was fucking action. When it was down here, I wasn't doing anything, right? And that's not a good formula for getting where you want to be. So we got motivation in terms of like, what can we do to increase the level of motivation that you have on a daily basis? And then also, I think another area I'd love to go on this podcast with you is just like, what can we do to develop more discipline? Because we know that discipline is a lot more reliable thing to rely on, right? Like, and so first off, let's go in the direction of motivation, right? Like if somebody is trying to develop more motivation, if they're like, you know what, like I'm like kind of having a good, like I got a little bit of discipline going. I understand that I want to rely on discipline, but like, how do I get motivation, right? I know I've had this before. It's fucking awesome. I love, like, I know that like I'm a lot more productive when I have it. What are some things you would recommend to somebody asking this?
Yeah. So the first thing I think people need to realize or acknowledge is that motivation is this short burning flame. At some point, it's going to burn out, right? So understand that first and foremost. Understand it is a real thing and we can totally take advantage of it, but it's going to be short lived. So in order to get something that's worthwhile, it's going to take a lot more reliability and sustainability than just a every once in a while approach or kind of sparingly. And so if we understand that and know that going forward, that man, we can get, it's almost like if you're into cars, it's like having a NOS booster, right? It's like every once in a while, like you're going to be able to hit that NOS and it's going to be able to give you this extra super fast burst of speed. But you're not just sitting there and punching it and hitting it every time, right? Your car is going to explode, right? You're probably going to, it's going to overheat. So you want to use it sparingly. It's the same thing if you take if we're using our body, for example, high intensity speed. Like if you were to do a high interval or sprint, take a cheetah, for example, they run the fastest on land, right? But they can do it for short amounts of time. I think motivation is exactly the same. So it's like, yes, take advantage of it. It is extremely powerful in dosages, but it's not something that we're going to use 24/7 every single day. It's not going to show up every single day. But when we do have it, use it as leverage. So first and foremost is acknowledging it, that we can use it, but we have to use it sparingly. The second thing is making sure that you have a plan in place that fires you up to begin with. If you're not even excited about the direction that you're going, to Alex's point, if you're picking something, a goal, something that you want to achieve, something that you want to reach because your friend did it, because it sounded cool, it sounded somewhat interesting. You feel like other people would think it would be cool if you achieve that, but in your gut, you truly don't want it. It's going to be very difficult and you're actually going to experience motivation less and less and less. So it already comes sparingly. If you don't have something that ignites you to begin with, I think you're going to experience it even less than if you had something that actually lit you on fire. And now, again, it doesn't have to be an end all be all, but you have to truly spend some time with yourself. I always have my clients look at themselves in their most vulnerable format, naked in the mirror, and ask themselves what they want, what they truly want. I know it sounds corny, but when you do it and you only have a conversation with you and yourself, you will get to the bottom of those reasons. You'll get to what it is that you actually want, because nobody else is in the room to judge you. Nobody else is in the room to give you their opinion, to throw in their 2 cents that may sway or deter you from what you actually want. And when you can do those things, you can actually have that real raw conversation with yourself and actually figure out what it is that you want. And once you have that, that's much deeper than saying, I want to look cool on the beach, or I think it would be cool to lose, to your point, an arbitrary 20 to 30 pounds because that's what Sally did, right? Those are very surface level things. Not to say they're not awesome and very cool goals and you would be stoked to achieve them, but I want something deeper than that. And I'll always encourage and push somebody to figure out what is deeper than that surface level thing. Because if we do want to experience this sparingly motivation that shows up and shows little glimpses here and there, we want to give ourselves the best percentage to experience those. So we want a higher percentage. And in order to do that, let's put the cards in our favor by figuring out something that we actually truly want, that's deep in our gut, that is that burning desire versus just like, oh, I kind of want that.
Yeah. Absolutely, dude. Yeah, kind of digging in, not just what you want even, but like why you want it. Like you said, you know, like talking about that I think is huge, because that's like fuel. That's fuel for the fire, right? That's extra motivation, and it is key to not rely on it. But I'd say like just some other things that you can do as well. We were talking about this before. And I think these fall into the discipline category too, which is kind of funny. Like I find myself thinking about the stuff that I'm about to say, and I'm like, you know what? Like everything kind of goes into the discipline side. Like we're not talking, like you can do like things to get you motivated short term. Like you can go do some fucking jumping jacks, right? You can get yourself moving. You might get some Like you might change your state. I think that's kind of the big thing I would say. If you're in the short term thing where you're like, I got to be amped up for this call, I got to be amped up for this podcast, I got to be amped up for this meeting at work, or this, like, I'm doing a presentation at work or whatever. Like changing your state, changing your posture, doing like the power poses where people have like their hands on their hips and do that. I think they've done a study that was like, 3 minutes of that, like it changed like people's states, the way they view themselves, the confidence, like stuff like that can really change it quickly. And then on the other side of the coin, which is almost just going into the discipline side, we talked about this on our Zoom call before this with Nick, where it was like, you were like, I'm starting to kind of take a little page out of your book, and you went fishing yesterday during the middle of the day, which you're like, this is not something I generally do. It's just the weekends. But one thing I've been doing the last few months is like scheduling more golf rounds and scheduling more things I'm looking forward to. And I've just realized, even looking back on like vacations that I've set up for myself and just different things that I actually had put on the calendar, that I'm a different version of myself those weeks. In those days when I have golf rounds, I'm a completely different person. I show up differently to calls. I show up differently to podcasts. I show up differently for the tasks that I have to do. I show up differently for my family, my friends, all these people. It lifts my energy up. I feel like I'm vibrating on a lot higher frequency on those days. Thus, I have more motivation, right? And I think that does fall into the discipline category because it's something that you do throughout the week, and it could stop, right? Like I've had weeks where it's like I don't do it and I notice a big change, right? So it's like the discipline of scheduling those things in daily and weekly that you enjoy doing, that excites you, that you can look forward to, is going to increase that level of motivation. But more importantly, it's going to allow you to be more productive, perform better in every area of your life, feel better, and just like love life more, which I think is just such a key component of it. And then some other things I would say: sleep. I think this might be the biggest tip, where it's like, if you do not get quality sleep. I had a day, this was when I came back from Vegas, right? I had like, it was just I woke up, we had a late night the day before at a David Blaine show. And then, so I didn't get to sleep till like 11. I woke up at 3 something the next morning and flew back to Minnesota. And so like I was like, when I was going through that, I was like, I don't know how people do this, right? Like go on 4 hours of sleep. Like it's just, I was a zombie. I was worthless to the world that day. And thus I didn't get much done for work, or I wasn't motivated to really work out or do any of that stuff. Right. I still did a lot of those things. I still got my movement in. I still got, some sort of exercise in. I still got these things in, but I was like, I did not feel good. Right. And so I think that you're a lot less likely to be disciplined and to do the things that you need to do on a daily basis to move yourself forward when you are not getting quality sleep. What are some things that you'd say, just on top of those two, that people can do to start developing more discipline?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's different for everybody. And what I encourage people to do whenever somebody starts my program, and I'll speak to the people that take wins from this and how they find these sparks of motivation, is I have something called the 21-day jumpstart. So the first 21 days, we're focusing on exactly what you're talking about. The fundamentals, right, is what we all call them. We all know we're supposed to do them. Sleep, hydration. A big one that's on there too is mindset. What we talked about initially before is reestablishing what you want, your desire, et cetera, those things. And then also establishing a step count, so energy expenditure. The reason for that is not only to create habits with those throughout the first 21 days and do them consistently every single day, but you're going to start to notice, soon as you implement those fundamentals and those basics, your body's going to feel different. And what I found is, once people see that for themselves and they make that acknowledgement and they connect the two dots, so to speak, they start to get a lot of momentum. They start to get a lot of rhythm because they see the benefits, that they're already reaping the rewards from these little basic fundamental things that they know they probably should be doing. But now all of a sudden somebody's holding accountability right here in front of their face and saying, hey, check these off each and every single day. And if you didn't, I can see if you did or you didn't. Once they do that and they have that sort of accountability, it's going to be different for everybody. But you'll see, for example, if somebody's maximizing their hydration, which they weren't doing before, they're like, God, I just feel like I have more energy. I have less cravings. I feel less bloated. My skin looks better. Right. And now they're basically mobilizing their body, giving it the fluid that it needs to be able to operate at a high performance. And they start to feel these things. And once they can feel those, from what I've seen, it becomes contagious for that person, and they put themselves and they all of a sudden stack the percentages in their favor. Like, I wonder, okay, I'm doing this for 21 days. I wonder if I did it for another 21 days, or I wonder if I did it for the next 3 to 4 weeks, like what would happen? Because those first 3 weeks were phenomenal. Like I've never felt like that in years. I can't remember the last time I felt like that. And they start to build their own wave. And anytime you can ride your own wave, I think that motivation will come a lot more, and you start to create it versus just wait for it to hit you in the face. Now you're intentional with your approach. Now you are in control with your day-to-day, starting your morning off, and the little small things that you can do that stack up to make this huge difference. That on the surface, it doesn't seem like it, but I've noticed that people all of a sudden start to reap the rewards of the benefits of these little small things that they do, that they put in place on a day-to-day basis. And they go, I actually feel really good. I feel different. And I didn't know it was going to have that big of an impact. And that's the trigger that I think as soon as people get that feeling, man, it starts to get really cool. And I know you felt this too from a coaching perspective, because you can see that they're kind of turning the stone themselves. They're starting to look beyond the curtain themselves and start to make that acknowledgement and that correlation between some of the fundamentals and the basics. And you talk about motivation. Now they don't need to solely, it's not so black and white anymore. It's not like, oh, I feel like shit or I'm motivated. It's like, well, I may not feel phenomenal yet, but I'm feeling a lot better than what I did before. And so now they're a little bit further on that spectrum. And now all of a sudden, like we talked about, that sparingly hit of motivation that comes too. They're already further along their spectrum, and that motivation just gives them that extra kick. So they're already putting themselves in a better position to receive that motivation. And man, it just becomes a snowball effect from there. So I think it's going to be different for everybody, but I think if you can find the things that you feel move the needle the most as an individual, sleep, hydration, some sort of movement, quality, obviously nutrition and quality whole food sources, single ingredient whole foods. If you can prioritize as best as you possibly can, start to eliminate some of the processed foods in your diet, you're going to feel different. I guarantee you will. If you are somebody who's on the opposite side of the spectrum right now, your energy levels are shit, your sleep's like shit, you feel terrible. Those are small things that you can do consistently on a day-to-day basis. And I promise you, your body's going to start feeling different. And that will be the motivation that you need to continue to feel like that. And it'll also help you do the things that are necessary to get you where you want to go, kind of by default. So what would you add to that, man?
Yeah, man, I love that. I think like what you're saying there is basically action. Taking action is going to increase those levels of motivation. And I found kind of like what your 21-day jumpstart is, and people really getting that ball rolling themselves. Back a little while ago, I did like a 90-day challenge, and I ended up doing like 65 days of it. And through those 65 days, I gained so much discipline of just committing to things that I could consistently do day after day, week after week. And it was stuff tied to my health. It was stuff also tied to my business, right? It was productivity things. And that was one of the biggest game changers for me, was committing to that long time frame of just doing things every day, because there was so many days and weeks that came up that I was not motivated at all. I hated, like, I was like, this is terrible. I got to get a workout in. I kind of mirrored it off of 75 hard a little bit. And so I was like, I'm going to do a 75 hard, but I'm going to do a combo of exercise, food stuff, and work stuff in one, right? I'm going to do just like a 60, 90-day challenge. And just that was the biggest thing that I used to develop discipline. And I've been able to stick with a lot of those things to this day. Like I had 30 minutes of reading on my thing. I've done 30 minutes of reading every day for the past 6 months, ever since I started that challenge. Walking, right? Like at least doing 45 minutes of walks every day. I've done that every day since then. Like I developed a lot of a really amazing, or like kind of almost redeveloped some of these amazing habits that really make me feel my best. And so I'd challenge people, just like what you do with the 21-day jumpstart, almost putting that time horizon out like to like a 60. I feel like 60 days is almost like that period of time that you see. And I was reading the book, and they were talking about like how many days it took for people to create a habit, right? And I think it's going to vary from person to person, right? It might be, for some people, maybe it is like 21 days that for certain things that it becomes a habit for them. Other people, it might be even closer to like the 90, 100 days that it takes them to create a habit. But setting something out super long term, finding 2-3 different habits that you can do that challenge yourself in a little bit of a capacity, but also move yourself towards where you want to be, and just committing to executing those day after day, week after week, month after month, for whatever time frame you've had. And I think you'll find once you get to those habits may be a little bit different for you, because what I was doing for me is I was building those up, right? It's like, okay, this is really easy. Let's do a little bit more, right? Or let's, once I kind of figured out, I was like, okay, like these things are pretty easy for me. Like this is second nature at this point. It's like, let's add this habit in, and let's try this in a smaller capacity and build that habit up. And you'll find that that's a really good way to just go about things in the first place. But that's as simple as just setting that up yourself, right? Like just like finding those things. Like we all know stuff that's going to move us in the direction towards our goals. We all know what we're not doing. And so set that up for yourself, do a 60-day, 90-day challenge, and you'll develop a lot of great skills. I think that's what 75 Hard is really, really good for. I've never personally done it, and I know it's super duper intense, and I wouldn't recommend that everybody tries that. Like I think I've had people come to me, they're like, should I do 75 Hard? It's like, you should fix your sleep. That's what you should do. Like, you should fix your sleep first, because guess what? This 75 Hard is probably going to ruin your sleep. I mean, you might develop some good habits, and I think it's a great thing for discipline. But that's my big thing. Is that challenge changed my life in that aspect of discipline. It really changed a lot of my habits, and like I said, I've still kept a lot of those things to this day that have really served me well. I think the reading thing is just huge. Like I find that it trains my focus. I find that like I feel like I'm better with words because of all of the reading that I'm doing on a regular basis, and just learning about different things that I want to learn about, finding ways to apply that to my program, apply that to my coaching, apply that to my group, apply this to this podcast. And I love that. So, I don't know if that answers your question. I forgot what your question was, but
I did too at this point, but it sounded good. No, man, that's good. I think you brought up a great point. I think when people try to create this discipline and they know they need to create consistency, a common fault that I see, especially with new people starting out, is they try to do these extravagant things because for whatever reason, whether it is the 75 Hard, whether it is something that their friend did, they know that they need to go from 0 all the way to 100 as fast as they possibly can. 0 days of workout to 5 or 6 because that's what their friend is doing. Or a point that you brought up that was really good was you created 60 to 90 days for habits that you continuously did after that, but you did it in a gradual fashion. So you did it in a way that, okay, let me give myself some low-hanging fruit here. It's going to stretch me a little bit, but it's not stretching me so far that on a difficult or high stressful day or a day that I get thrown some curveballs, I can't complete it. And so that's what I really encourage with my clients too, is give yourself some low-hanging fruit. I want it to stretch you, but I want you to also prep your mind right now around your most chaotic day that you can think of. Whether it is your boss throws you, 5 extra emails that you have to send out by the end of the day, and you only have 30 minutes left to work. You didn't know, you weren't expecting to pick the kids up because it's not your day today or not your turn to pick them up, but all of a sudden you have to, right? Then on the way to get there, you have a flat tire. Like those are the things that I want you to think about. And then based on the things that you're committing to on a daily basis, can you still complete those things? And if the answer is no, then I want you to reassess. I want you to think about it. If the answer is absolutely yes, cool. Now we have a good starting spot. And it's the reason why is because people will shoot for the moon, and which, by the way, I have no problem with doing. But if we're talking about building consistency and building discipline, you got to give yourself that bar height that is achievable, but is also going to stretch you. And I think that's the sweet spot. I think once people find that for themselves, and every individual is going to be different, but once you do find it, man, the game gets really fun. You start to reap the rewards and taste the benefits of, man, I can actually do this even on a tough day. Even on a day where shit hits the fan, I still have the ability to complete XYZ. Like it should just be 1 to 3 things. Very simple, very straight to the point. even on your days where you're going to struggle, you know you can complete them regardless of how you feel. And that's going to build the callus of that discipline, that consistency that we're talking about, which ultimately yields the thing that you want, right? We talk about activities, we talk about the habits that build the activities. And that's where the foundation lays in. I think people think that they need to get motivated to do these extraordinary things. And it's just smoke and mirrors of how the process actually works. It's like, no, that person that has achieved or attained what you actually want. Matter of fact, let me back up. The person that has achieved something that you want, actually, there's somebody out there who has less resources than you, has less potential, is at a more disadvantage than you are, and they've actually achieved the thing that you want. Why is that? Well, they were extremely consistent in their process. That's the only thing that differentiated from where you're at and where they're at. They actually have it harder than you. You actually have a better chance and you're set up for more success than they are. But how is it that they achieved what you want and you haven't yet? Well, there's something there. There's a fine line there. And what it is the consistency of discipline. That's all it is. They just did things regardless of whether they felt like it or not. They understood where that bar was set for themselves. They didn't set it too high. They didn't set it too low. They set it at a sweet spot to where they can gradually create progression time and time again, until they eventually reach where it is that they want to go. And I think one more thing to acknowledge too is when you're creating those things in your head, being like, okay, what are the 1 to 3 things that I can stay consistent with every single day, day in and day out, regardless of the circumstance? You want to make it something that not only can you reach it, but you can do it for an extended period of time. Alex mentioned I challenged myself for 60 to 90 days. I actually continue to read for 30 minutes and then I apply those things into my coaching that I learned. Like those are things that he continued to do because he eliminated his finish line. There's no deadline of like, okay, once I get, that's the thing that people get misconstrued is, oh, once I get to those 60 days or once I get to the 90 days, I'll be done. I'll feel accomplished and I could just kick my feet up and I'll never have to do it again. When in actuality, you're not going to want to stop doing those things, right? It goes way beyond the 60 to 90 days. You all of a sudden no longer have this finish line that you may have once thought of.
Yeah, dude. I love it. Dude, that's all amazing points there. And it's so true. Like you're doing it to build the habits, right? Like it's like, I think that some people can get in it for the wrong reasons where it's like, I'm doing it to reach this goal, right? And then they think that life is just going to be amazing when they reach this goal, right? It's like, oh, I can just sit, kick my feet up and just continue doing whatever I was doing in the past. And that's just not how this works. And I think that it goes back to building and keeping those promises. Like that's what I honestly like letting myself down. Like even if I put something on my to-do list or whatever, and I'm like, okay, my power list, I use the power list by that Andy Frisella talks about. And that really is something that really works well for me. And he talks about like, and when I put something on that, like I can't even remember the last time I missed doing something on that list. Cause like I'm so into, first off, setting the deck in my favor at the start of the day and being like, okay, how can I challenge myself, but also make sure I can do all these things and get all these things done on a daily basis. Also, it's like that let down. I think if you let yourself down enough times and you get to the point where I've gotten to not so many points, but I've gotten to points in my life where my self-confidence was so low. And I just realized that I kept telling myself I was going to do these things and I kept not following through. And that there'd be these things in my calendar that was like, oh, I was going to do this 6 months ago, but I kept pushing it off day after day after day. And then eventually I'd be like, next month. And then it'd be day after day and the following month. And then it's 6 months later and the thing took me like fucking a minute to do, right? Like it's these things that it's insane. But I think that it all like discipline and confidence are so heavily linked because if you can become the person that does the things you're going to say to do, which is discipline, which is confidence, right? Which builds confidence rather, then you will become that person that you need to become because that's how we are. Like the person you are is built off of your habits. It's built off your routines. And so if we can set up a morning routine, if we can set up a nighttime routine, if we can set up reminders in your phone to do these things, I just don't think it's an excuse that you forgot. That's my thing is like, if you're out there and you're like, I just forgot to do it. That is the most bullshit excuse ever. I'm going to tell it to you straight to your face. That's bullshit. Like you can set yourself up. Everybody how do you get to work in the morning? Right. It's like I always say that. It's like, okay, like you can get to a work meeting, but you can't do these things that are going to move you towards this health goal that you have. Right. And so like I would challenge, and I actually had people in my last challenge that I ran. It was built off of water. It was built off of like just things that are going to increase your energy levels. Right. So like I had people pick a water goal that was attainable, or that they could do, that they felt they were 9 to 10 out of 10 confident they could do every day, right? Like you just talked about. I had them pick a step goal, the same thing, a step or a amount of time walking. And then I had them pick a habit around sleep, right? And it was like, okay, let's execute these every day for the next 14 days straight. And I had people that would post at the end of the day and be like, just came up short on my water, right? It was still the same night. They missed it by like 5 ounces. And I'm like, and to me, like, I was like, drink 5 more ounces, right? Like, I think it's so much more important. Even if you have 20 ounces, like this is my personal opinion, and this might not be something that vibes with everybody out there, but I think if you tell yourself you're going to do something, like there's going to be times where shit happens, right? Like in I have that happen to me too, where I don't always get everything done, right? And it's like, I'm at this point, I bounce back as quick as possible. We're never going to miss 2 days in a row. That's my whole thing. And I understand life happens. There's going to be things. But for the most part, you are just fucking yourself if you continue to tell yourself you're going to do stuff and you continue to not follow through. Do it. Like if you got to get a late workout in, do it. If you told yourself you're going to get a workout in, and you told yourself you're going to get 3 workouts in this week, figure out a way to do it. If you told yourself, this is my non-negotiable, it's 100 ounces of water and you're at 80 ounces and it's before you go to bed, chug 20 ounces. This may seem hard, but this is important to build that discipline and to build that confidence. And you will look back 3-6 months from now and you'll be happy that you did, because those times where I've not followed through on those things I told myself we're going to do, the next day it's like, fuck, I'm like, I'm sulking, I'm down. And it doesn't have to be that way, but before long, if you don't do the things that you say you're going to do enough times, that turns into your normal state, and you don't even realize that you're losing that confidence. Like you're just like, that's just me. I don't come through, right? I don't follow through. And that's probably one of the worst places you can get into, is just a bad relationship with yourself.
Dude, that's so huge. That's massive. And I hope everybody heard that, because I deal with it too. When I hear people say, when they've committed to themselves, oh man, I fell short 1,000 steps in my step goal today. I'm like, the amount of time that it's taking you to write this up and send me a text or send me a voice or whatever, you can be walking around your house right now and get 1,000 steps before you hop in bed. And some people are like, oh, that's a little crazy. Like, it's not that important. The crazy part is your mindset around this not being on board with yourself and where you want to go. If you have the audacity to set a low standard for yourself that you know is achievable on a tough day, and you fall short and you tell yourself that it's okay to, oh, whatever, you fill in some bullshit excuse. It's the exact reason that you haven't got to where it is that you want to go, is because you keep telling yourself that same bullshit story. And then at the end of the day, to Alex's point, what you're going to do is you're going to do that enough times. And then you have to stare yourself in the mirror and say, damn, I let myself down again. And all of a sudden your self-confidence starts to dwindle lower and lower and lower until it hits rock bottom. And then you go, you know what? You can see the people that are fed up. They're like, enough is enough. I'm tired of my own bullshit. Those are the people that skyrocket because they've been at the bottom for a long time. They've heard their bullshit for too long. And those are the people that are, for me, the most fun to work with, because they're on fire. You just have to direct them on where to go, right? And those people are really fun, but they've gone through extreme experiences, meaning like they felt and dealt and heard their bullshit for long enough that they're willing to do what it takes. And that's the difference. I think it's the difference between people just kind of dipping their toe in the water and then saying, oh, it's okay, I didn't do X, Y, Z. No. We made non-negotiables that you felt, you admitted 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 that you could complete on an extremely tough, stressful, shit hits the fan day. And now you're feeding yourself some bullshit excuse before your head hits the pillow, and you have to live with that, right? And then now you have to, and some people convince themselves that it's completely okay. And I know a huge crowd is going to be like, this is a little harsh, like this is a little tough. If your goal is to become better and you're trying to achieve something and you haven't, this is probably your missing piece right here. You're telling yourself that it's okay to fall short of something that you set out for yourself, right? And the second you do that, and you do that just like anything, you do that, that creates a snowball effect. It's going to create a snowball effect in the opposite direction until your pain exceeds the bullshit that you're feeding yourself, and you go, okay, enough's enough. I actually needed to be more consistent on this. I actually needed to stick to the things that I set out, that I said I was going to do for myself. I actually need to put my foot down and do it regardless of how I feel. And I need to be more confident in myself. And the way I do that is do the shit regardless of whether I feel like it or not, even if it's small. Give myself, I know there's other coaches and other speakers out there that use the 3-2-1 method, meaning just like, or count down from 5. When you have to face that thing that you know you're not supposed to, or you don't feel like doing, just give yourself that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, and do it. No thinking. The longer you think about it, the more time you're going to have to feed some bullshit into your head that you know you're going to believe. That's that inner critic telling you like, no, it's okay. Just kick your feet up. You got close today. All right. You got close enough today. And that's the same voice that's keeping you stuck where you're currently at. I know we went off on a tangent, but I wanted to get that out there too, because dude, you hit that on the head. That's so crucial.
No, I think that's good. And I think that's where stuff gets misconstrued a little bit as well. I don't even know if this is a tangent. I think it applies so heavily to discipline, confidence. Like, I think they're really linked, because like, if you're not disciplined, you're probably losing confidence. Right. And if you are disciplined, you're building that confidence. If you continue to build that discipline, it's a level, like it's like this, like it's like discipline and confidence. Discipline goes, confidence is going to go. I can't really do it very well in this screen here, but
they're parallels.
Yeah, no, I think those are two things that they rise together and they fall together. So you gotta really focus on doing what you can do. But I think one of the big places where it gets misconstrued a little bit is because I'm huge as well on like giving yourself a break and being like, making sure that you're not too harsh on yourself. But I think people sometimes they take that too far to the other way, where it's like, that there's going to be shit that's out of your control that happens, right? It's like there's shit that's out of your control that happens. Give yourself a break. Don't beat yourself up about it. There's going to be days where you do miss, right? Like there's days that like some wild shit happened, or like something happened and you couldn't do it. Like I've had it, you've had them, everybody's had them, right? Like where something happens. And in those days, cut yourself some slack and get on to the next. Don't allow that to spiral into a week, 2 weeks, a month, way back down at your old thing. Because that's a place I went to way too many times. But like we're talking about like keeping those promises and not like just being like, okay, it's okay that I missed my step goal today. It's okay that I missed my water goal. It's okay that I did this. Like there's going to be times where it's like I had a wedding, I couldn't hit my sleep. It's like I couldn't hit my nighttime routine normally. Like I got back home and I did a shortened version. And I think that's why it's important with your routines to have like a one thing. So you can do them like in short bursts, like have like an ideal routine and then have a routine that you can do no matter what. That's what I think throughout the day, setting reminders on your phone to make sure you can do stuff. I told a client one time, they were like struggling to hit some of these things. And I'm like, why don't you set a reminder on your phone for 2 p.m. and ask yourself where you're at with these things, right? It's like, where am I at with with my non-negotiables for the day? It's a reminder where, oh shit, I'm not in a good place. Like I got to pick it up here. And 2 p.m. is enough time where it's like, I got the rest of the day to hit my step goal, to hit my water goal, to hit whatever habits that I have to do. But if you just allow yourself to remember to do them when you don't remember, like you're relying on something, like you clearly don't care enough about them, right? Like that's what it tells me. It's not enough of a priority, because if something's a priority, you'll do whatever it takes to remind yourself of it. Sticky notes somewhere, reminders on your phone. Maybe you have an accountability partner that that texts you, that you're like, can you just text me every day, or text me like whatever, like every other day to remind me about these things or ask me about these things. Like there's a lot of different ways to go about it. And I got one more thing here. So like, what do you think? How do you think that like environment and people that you hang out with or like spend time with go into the motivation levels and also how disciplined people are?
It's huge, man. I think it pretty much is everything. I don't know if you've seen that, how fleas interact with each other. If you've seen that experiment that they do where they put fleas into a jar, and they put the lid on the jar and the fleas will jump right, to the height of the jar where the lid is. And then they remove the jar and the fleas are jumping to the height as if they're still in the jar, but they're not anymore. So I think you are literally a product of your environment. So if it's supportive, if it's conducive to where you're going, like sky's going to be the limit. If it's restrictive, if you have a significant other or a spouse or somebody who you feel like is being an anchor to you, meaning not in a good way, but like literally holding you back, that's going to have a huge impact on your motivation, your discipline, your trajectory of where it is that you're trying to go. And in those situations, I think it's super important, if you do have somebody where it's conflicting like that, is to seek support from them, not ask them whether you can do something or whether you can't do something. And I think simply rephrasing that is going to help you out, and help determine your trajectory of where it is that you're going. If your goal is to better yourself, to become a different version of yourself, and then you have one either person or persons that are holding you back, or literally just the environment that you're in, those things can have a huge impact that are either going to be supportive or not supportive to where the direction that you're trying to go. So I think those are things that in my intake forms, when we bring our clients on, those are one of the first things that we ask is, what's your support system like, both from a nutritional standpoint and just overall you embarking on this new journey and bettering yourself. What does that support system look like? And right away, we can see some red flags that come up. We can address those from the jump, because if not, it's again, we're swimming upstream with one paddle, and it's very difficult. It becomes very hard. This process in itself is already challenging. To not have the support system aligned with you to kind of give you that extra wind behind your sails is going to be crucial during your process. And so I think it's massive. I think it has a huge effect on people, for the better or not, and it will sway the direction in which that person goes drastically if it's very supportive versus if it's not. So yeah, man, I think that's a great question. What are your thoughts on the support system and environment, and is it conducive towards both motivation and discipline?
I agree 100%. I mean, Jim Rohn talks about how you're the combination, or something along those lines of you're the combination of the 5 closest people to you. Right. And I think that goes a long way towards your discipline, towards your motivation levels, because if a lot of the people around you are growing, they're pushing towards goals, they're they have a lot of good habits, they have a lot of good routines, you're a lot more likely to do that, to follow suit. It's why like somebody embarking on like a really cool endeavor, like bettering themselves, choosing to go at health goals, you see other people around them, maybe family, friends, like improve as well and maybe follow suit, because if you're around people, like you rub off on them. It's like when I've been around certain people that just have a negative mindset and they have a just a bad view, or maybe they're just like, they're not great people, like those belief systems can start to get into your mind. I found like it's almost like subconscious. You see yourself thinking the way that they're thinking. It's like groupthink, right? Like if you're around, like if you have people who think big, and Ed Milet talked about this one time. I don't know if it was on a podcast. I'm also in his like entrepreneur group, Arte Syndicate as well. And I don't know if he talked about it there, but he was talking about how like because I've always heard people talk about how like letting stuff like, or like people around you like influencing stuff like that, and he had talked about like, if like you're around people that are really like growing and whatever, is like if you have a lot of people in your life that are constantly talking about the good old days and constantly talking about how it was in the past and all these things, it's like that like that's not moving you in the direction of where you want to go. Like thinking and living in the past is never going to help you develop more motivation. It's never going to help you develop more discipline. Now, that's not to say that looking into the past for things and being able to learn from those experiences, maybe being able to heal past wounds, break past false beliefs, stuff like that can be very beneficial. But living in the past and constantly telling stories about the drunk days and all this bullshit, like I've definitely been around groups where once I heard him say that, I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, these groups, like that's the conversation. And I realized about myself, all I want to talk about is where we're going, right? That's what like I'm talking about. Like, hey, what are you doing? Like, what are you working on? Like, oh yeah, I'm excited about this, like stuff I'm excited about. And like when you talk about that stuff, it really pushes you forward. I think it personally really helps with motivation. It helps you develop more discipline because you have other people who are disciplined around you. So like if that's a little simple tip that you can see, a lot of the conversations you have are about like last night and oh yeah, the drunk last night, or I know I'm going into like alcohol and stuff like that, but like I feel like that is a lot of the stories that people tell is around like oh the bachelor party and oh remember like that night when you hit on this girl and like blah blah like you rode that bull and like all this bullshit. And so like it's like that stuff's fun, it's cool, but like if you are hanging around people who are constantly telling stories of the past, it's not going to ever bring you forward. You want to be thinking about what's next. And maybe if you just did a reflection and you're like, I'm always talking about the past, this is a good opportunity for you as well to start to set your sights on what you truly want, which goes back to what I first talked about around clarity. You're probably going to want to get clear on what you truly want because maybe you aren't at the moment. And so doing that is huge. Like I think it's like the people you surround yourself, man. Like I have just if I look at my life a simple few years ago, like not that the people I was surrounding myself with, great people, but not in the same boat as me, where I'm really like, I'm obsessed with growth and change and becoming better and impacting the world in different and changing the world in some respect, right? Like I see myself making huge strides and doing some big things over the course of my life. And if I'm hanging out with people that are not in the slightest like worried about that kind of growth, then it's not going to necessarily be a great fit, right? Like we need to surround ourselves with people who are trying to go at goals that we are going at, bigger goals, or, talking about things that are productive. And when we do that, it's going to encourage you to grow. Cause like, I don't know about you, Matt, but when I get around people, I mean, when we chat, like, it inspires me to be better and to do other things. When we get Nick on a chat, when I talk with other coaches, when we go to these conferences, like I always leave there with a lot more motivation and just a lot more fire to really just make a bigger impact. And so I think like you said, it's everything. Environment is everything. People you surround yourself is everything. If you are currently surrounding yourself with people that are not moving forward, that are not moving in the direction of you either have to have a conversation or something like that. I know it's very difficult to do, or just start limiting that time with those people, right? Start limiting the time with those people and start trying to try new things, go out and do things, like get involved in different groups, go to different like events, meetups, things like that with people that are like-minded, that are going at similar things that you. And I think you'll find that by doing that, you'll see a huge change in a lot of things in your life.
100%, man. I think it's one of the easiest, simple things that you can do in order to help level yourself up. Today's topic is about motivation and discipline. And if you're really trying to seek and find that, one of the simplest things that you can do is place yourself in an environment that's productive towards where that you want to go, the direction that you want to go. Either people that have done what you're trying to do before, or even in the community of people who are on their way to doing something similar that you're doing. That's why we created Facebook groups, right? Be in like-minded communities, because you're going to share similar conversations. You're going to have similar ideas. People are going to be on the same wavelength as you. They're going to understand you. You're going to understand them. You're going to be able to absorb things from them, and you're going to be able to go leaps and bounds further than if you were trying to do it by yourself with somebody who's unsupportive. And to Alex's point, who lives in the past, continuously telling stories from high school, from back in the day, from whatever. Now, on the flip side, when you place yourself in a group of people or community or even person, something that is supportive towards the direction that you're going to want to go, man, watch doors open up just by you being a part of that. You're just a byproduct. You're going to be forced to level up, whether you want to or not. And that's the power that it has. I remember when I first started training, I remember walking into a competitive CrossFit gym. I was just kind of getting into CrossFit. And I remember seeing games athletes in there, and they were training. They had just a group training together. And the girls, the guys, I mean, they looked like mutants, right? They looked like everybody was from 300. Like the girls, the guys, they all had six pack. They're all super jacked. They're all walking on their hands, like throwing crazy weight around. You're like, holy shit. I introduced myself to that. I joined the gym. I jumped in there and I was like, I don't belong yet, But I know if I just train with these guys and just stay on their heels, by default, I'm going to become a byproduct of this environment, right? And so I just threw myself in the environment. I was super nervous. I didn't have the experience that they did, not even close. I was just kind of getting into it, but man, it forced me to level up, and I don't have any regrets about it. The nicest people ever too. Some of the most intimidating people that you see that you're like, oh, they're probably a dick, or they're probably self-conceited, or they're super strong, or they're buff, or like they're going to be an asshole. Trust me, they've been through and experienced every single emotion possible in this field, in the health and fitness field, in the bettering yourself field. They're going to share their experiences with you. You're going to level up just as a byproduct of being part of the environment. And that's exactly what happened. So I would encourage people who are struggling to find the motivation and the discipline is just like engulf yourself either around coaches, a community, people who are supportive. If you don't have it at home, you need to find it in some way, shape, or form, even if it's remote, even if it's online, because it will make a world of a difference for you when we're talking about specifically motivation and discipline and just leveling up. You can level up by default just by choosing who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, man. I mean, fuck. Hopefully you guys like this as much as I did. This is a fucking awesome conversation. As always, man, it's so great getting on these pods. Like I look forward to it every week. And I wish we could do like too, 5. Man. I wish we could do it every day, but fuck, we don't have enough time in the day to do this every day.
We just don't record them. We got to start hitting record on our pre-conversations too, because there's some gold in there.
That's right. Like we'll be on the Zoom before, because we always meet with Nick, who's our producer here and does a lot of awesome work here for the podcast.
Shout out Nick.
And we will have some conversation. Yeah, shout out Nick while you're recording there, while you're looking through this. Appreciate you, brother. But we have some good conversations on there. I'm like, hey, like, let's just keep this for the podcast, because we gotta let's have our bad conversation now. Like which I don't think we have. We just kind of go back and forth and shit. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, Matt. Always a pleasure. If you did enjoy this, make sure you share it with somebody who's lacking the motivation now. They can learn some thing or two. I know I'm going to be going back through this again. Like I love listening to these every week. But make sure you like, subscribe. Like I said, send this to a friend. I think this is probably the biggest, hottest topic out there as far as what people struggle with is to find motivation. And so today we gave you a lot of gold on that. We appreciate everybody who takes the time to watch, listen to this each week. And as always, Matt, appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, my man. See you on the next one.
See you.